Ladies and gentlemen, welcome you all to yet another fantastic episode of India HR Live. And as you all know, we have celebrated our first year anniversary last Tuesday. And thank you so much for all for being there with us and for joining here today on our Twitter stream. I can see a lot of tweets are coming up at this point. And if you are wondering how to watch the show, we have posted this link everywhere on our social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, or Facebook even, or Google Plus. So stay tuned to any of the social media platform and you can watch there. And how to join this show and contribute to this show is ask some questions. Our audience, our panelists are really waiting to hear what you are thinking about what they talk, and if you have any questions, they are pretty much happy to answer any of your questions. So use the hashtag IndiaHRLive on Twitter or on Facebook, anywhere, so we'll be able to pull your questions and thoughts and bring it to the panelists. So without further ado, let's meet them. We're going to talk a hell lot of a topic regarding trends in HR technology in talent management. So without further ado, let me bring them to you. Jason Everbrook. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Nisha. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Jason is the Chief Business Innovation Officer at Aperio. Jason, we would love to hear a little bit more about you so that our audience from India and from all over the world can know a little bit more about you.
No, that's great, Nisha. So I've spent the last 20-some years in this odd world of HR technology. My parents didn't raise me to be in the HR space nor the technology space. I somehow fell into this space, unlike my other panelists, who I'm sure were raised to be HR experts. I came from different vendors. I worked for Ceridian Corporation, which was control data, then spent a good chunk of time with PeopleSoft, started my own firm, which was Knowledge Infusion, and that firm was acquired by a company called Aperio, which is a global cloud-based consultancy with major offices in San Francisco, Indianapolis in the U.S., but then Jaipur in India, as well as London. So scattered all over the world, really helping organizations really transform and reimagine their HR and workforce processes. So very much look forward to being here. I do a lot of work on the vendor selection side, a lot of work on working with vendors as far as what they should be doing in their next products, as well as working with customers on how to select vendors. So very much look forward to the questions coming in today.
Well, thanks. Well, wonderful to hear that. And you guys, you really know we are talking global here. So let's meet Sagar Anand, who is the VP of HR at CA Technologies. Sagar, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me, Nisha?
We can hear you, but I'm not able to see you.
Yeah, I don't know, for some reason even my screen is frozen, but I can hear you. I just heard Jason introduce himself, so I think at least we can hear each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
sure.
So go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself, Sagar. And first of all, welcome to the show. If you can talk a little bit about you and what you do, our audience will have a bit more information on how to connect with you.
Wonderful. So Nisha, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. And I am Sakar Anand. I'm based out of India. I head HR for CA Technologies in India. Surprisingly, I do not come from an HR background. I have no education in HR. I come from a technology background. Joined HR about 3 years ago. And before HR, all my 15 years were in technology. Even in CA, my first 2.5, 3 years was in product development. And then one day I happened to be asked to head HR for CA in India. And here I am on this forum talking to all of you. So I bring in perspective on HR as a business leader in terms of what I expected from my HR business partner, what I expected from HR in terms of technology, and now I am here providing all those services back to my business partners.
Great.
So I look forward to the audience questions, and I hope I'll be able to add value.
Great, well, great to hear that, and glad to know you started your career in technology for the first place, so you have a lot to share when it comes to technology overall. And let's meet Mohit Garg. He is the co-founder of MindTickle. Well, in fact, Mohit was there in India for a while. Now he has expanded his operation to United States. So again, as I started, we are talking a global as a we are talking from a perspective of a global space. Now we will know more of Mohit's experience from India and how that has been different when he moved to United States. Mohit, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nisha. It's good to be on the show again.
Great.
Again, thank you for having me, and I think that's a great set of panelists here. So really excited about this discussion. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, welcome back. Yeah, you have been on the show before, and welcome back to the show. If you can talk a little bit about you and how was the transition for you, has been going on from India to now you're based out of San Francisco. So how is it going on?
I think I'll answer that question by tying it to the theme of the discussion today, right? So today,
Yeah.
I think organizations are so global in nature
Mm-hmm.
that geographical mobility is just, or being able to transcend geographical boundaries is almost expected and is becoming more seamless. So we'll talk about more as we go along about how you manage a global workforce and what that entails. For me, my journey has been a combination of technology in the Silicon Valley back in the 99 boom days, to consulting with PwC for about 5 years. And through this journey of about 14 years, I got to experience a variety of cultures, right from Middle East, South Africa, India, United States. And a few years back, I co-founded Mindtickle with three more like-minded people. And we've been on a mission to make online learning more engaging and effective. We use gamification and social techniques to make even dry learning experiences much more engaging. And today, I would love to share experience from having seen hundreds of deployments, what's worked, what hasn't worked, how to engage millennials, what works with new hire onboarding. So there's lots of interesting insights that I hope to be able to share and get feedback from the other panelists on the show today. So really excited. Thank you for having me again.
Wonderful. So last but not least, let's meet Sandeep Tori. He is the CEO and co-founder of Important Technologies. Sandeep, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nisha. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can see that this is really going to be an exciting, evening for us here in India. And this is very nice because we get to, I think also learn a lot when we are being on this panel and interacting with all your other listeners and viewers. Uh, thank you for making this opportunity available for us to be on the show. Glad to be here with all the other panelists, and I think our journey has been pretty eventful. I've been kind of working in different spheres in HR for about 8 or 9 years now, and I think the funny thing is that I think all of us here on this panel have landed up into HR by accident, and the same is the case. When I started, when I started my career, if I can call it, in IT, it was to develop a payroll software, and this was like a couple of decades ago. Okay, and that started as an experiment. It turned out to be a product. It wasn't intended to be one, and then of course, and from then on, I kind of started working on different software products. Primarily for SME and then for enterprise, and kind of grew into the shoes at that time. Completely non-tech background, completely non-HR background, and just loved kind of bucking the trend at every step. Um, so we've done in my company today. Important is a cloud-based HR management platform. We currently serve customers all across India and a few of them globally. We launched Important about 3 years back, and our kind of our motive to launch Important was kind of starting with a lot of the frustration that we had when working on enterprise software. And so, just one moment.
No problem.
Sorry about that.
The challenges of technology, right? We're all
Yeah.
technologists. We live with it
Yeah,
everywhere we are.
trying to do this without headphones, and hopefully it works. But then there's this odd thing that always has to pop up.
No problem.
um,
It happens.
Right. So, in HR, in the HR domain per se, we've been working, with very large companies for about 8, 9 years now. And we realized, about 3 years back, 4 years actually, that this is not going to work for us in the long term, because enterprise technology was becoming kind of fairly staid, and a lot of different kinds of products coming into the market. And we also realized that for us to become a global player, we really needed to be on a platform like a cloud-based delivery platform, which can help us to serve customers globally. And so we started off without really realizing what the cloud was about. And we just said we want to put the software on the internet, and it just started with something as simple as that. And then, of course, that's history, and we kind of grew to understanding the technology, the delivery mechanisms, and kind of had to actually re-engineer the entire company, not just the products, to be able to work as a SaaS-based, cloud-based platform. So that's been our journey. Some pretty interesting work we've done along the way. I'm happy to talk about that in the course of this conversation.
Wonderful. Well, now that you have met all of our panelists, and you might have now you've got an idea of who we're really talking about. These are all HR technology real experts out there. So don't miss it out to ask any of your questions regarding HR technology to India HR Live. Tweet your questions to India HR Live hashtag, and we will be able to pull that up. So let's kick off the panel discussion and open the panel discussion, asking about what are some of the trends that our panelists have seen throughout the last 5 years. And now they have been in the industry for the past decade, and how this HR technology has been evolved in over a decade. Let's hear about it. So Jason, I would like you to take the turn. First of all, and what have you seen? How has HR technology evolved over the past decade, and what are some trends that you have seen currently?
No, thanks for the question. So, I'd like to start by saying, one of the biggest shifts that I've seen is that HR technology, as we know it, really isn't HR technology anymore. HR technology, as we know it, is really workplace technology or workforce technology that HR people can use. And I think that in itself is one of the major shifts. So, what we've seen over time is, in the past, all of the software and technology was developed for HR people. So 1%, maybe 0.1% of the users were the workforce, and 99% of the users were the HR department. In today's world, that's all flipped. So really today, we have 99% of the users being the workforce, 1% of the organizations being the HR department, and that's just a major, major lens shift for organizations. So I'd say, that's the first thing. The second thing is just the whole concept around data. And most organizations don't have the data. They have the data, but it's scattered all over the place. And when it comes to HR actually being seen as a credible source of people data, in most organizations it's not the case. So the second big trend is, how do we get data and use data from a unification standpoint in a better way than we have in the past? And I'd say the third big thing that we're seeing, and that I see, is what the impact that the cloud is having on overall how organizations drive adoption of software. So we think about, I call it adoption to addiction. And how do you move from adoption, where I might use this one piece of software every 1 or 2 or 3 years, to moving to a mode now where I'm using the software all the time. I'm collaborating with it. I'm interacting with it versus just doing transactions with it. So those three things, the concept of really designed for the workforce, understanding data and looking at data differently, and finally, and making sure you have the data, and finally, interactions, not transactions, I'd say are the three biggest changes in the last 5 years.
Wonderful. So how about you, Mohit? What have you seen currently are some of the trends in HR technology? And right now, Jason has pointed some of the very insightful thoughts like analytics, and then a user-friendly experience. In fact, that's been the #1 criteria for any technology out there. It has to be a user-friendly thing. At the end of the day, employees are going to use it, right? So what have you seen are some of the trends in HR technology?
This is a great question, Nisha, to start off the discussion. And I will echo a lot of the thoughts that Jason shared, but I'll try to add my own color and commentary to it. And I would call it the human connection. right? So I would say the technology so far, up until recently, has been more business centric, process centric, like Jason was alluding to. And now it's starting to develop the human connection, right? And when we look at the human connection, it manifests itself in many ways, right? So I'll take an example of social techniques and social technology making its way into the enterprise and HR. This is one example where technology has started to mirror how humans naturally operate in their natural habitat. When you are with friends, where you're in your colleagues, you're working in a startup, when there are no process or artificial boundaries around you, how do humans operate? And technology is starting to mirror that, right? So now if you think about gamification, right? I'm a gamification enthusiast, and my startup Mindtickle has been a big proponent of use of engagement techniques in software, right? But that's not just for the sake of adoption or saying that we want the users to be hooked or addicted. It's about presenting a user experience which is stimulating, presenting a user experience which gets the human connection between the technology and the users who are taking advantage of that software. So it's going much beyond a functional need of satisfying a payroll software and ATS. It is more going into, can we start getting the users to engage with the technology to their benefit and with other users of that technology? Can we form community of users who can learn from one another? So there's a lot of examples that hopefully we'll share as we go along. But I'll summarize by 4-letter acronym which has done the rounds for the last 5 years. It's called SMAC, Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud. If I were to call out 4 distinct trends which are making a big dent in HR technology, I would say these would be 4, and I would add my own obligatory plug of gamification in there because we're really excited about it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Sagar, are you there?
I'm here, Nisha.
Great. I'm so sorry we are unable to see you, and I'm sure our audience are feeling the same thing. But we are really, really lucky to have you out there virtually. So, what have you seen are some of the trends in HR technology? Because you are in the tech trenches from the very beginning, and now currently you are as a VP of HR. So, well, and you're working with tons and tons of clients out there. So, what have you seen are some of the trends from your end?
Perfect. So, I call them 4 different transformations of how HR has been using technology. So the first one of them is moving from digitization to digitalization. So, what I mean there was that, initially we had digitization wherein we kind of automated the workflow so that we could, move from one user in the system to the other user in the system. We have now taken it to digitalization, wherein we are now sending information through that workflow. So we are sending data in a digital form. So it is actually, replicating the HR process in the real sense. The second trend that I'm seeing is what we call from virtualization to visualization. So, as a user of an HR process, if I am not seeing people in real sense, and if there's a process that is being followed, I always want to know where in the process am I as a user of the HR process. So now there are techniques which are actually making the HR process visible to the employees and the users of that process. So that is what I call virtualization to visualization. The third thing which I want to talk about is self-service to self-actualization.
I'm sorry, I guess technical glitches and we lost Sagar in between, and hopefully he will join in again. So let's move on to Sandeep. Sandeep, are you out there? No, I guess. Hi, Sandeep, can you hear us?
Hi, Nisha. Yes, I'm on. I was on mute.
Great. So what have you seen are some of the trends in HR tech world?
I think just like any other any other software or IT enabled process, which has been one of the backbones of a business function like HR. And you can take that example in sales or any other process. I think HR has been along with other ERP kind of technologies, has been one of the earliest adopters, of technology, primarily because of the complexity, the sheer volume, where we just had to automate, right? So those were the days when you talked about computing in a traditional sense. I think from there, if you look at the last 5 years, it's completely transformed the way we look at it today. You earlier had large sets of products doing all-encompassing umbrella functions. Today, each of these large functions is actually getting super specialized. So, if you look at HR, within the HR domain itself, take something like talent acquisition. Okay, now you've got technology which is very specific to talent acquisition, and you don't really need to depend upon a large, monolithic piece of software to actually help you to do talent acquisition. And within talent acquisition itself, there are so many new paradigms which have actually come in, right? So it's not just about managing a talent acquisition process. It's about looking at it in a completely new way. And that's what some of the new things which we referred to earlier, for example, social and mobile, have actually enabled. So one is the technology itself has changed. I think more importantly, the paradigm itself has undergone a sea transformation because of introduction of social and mobile. Uh, Similarly, if you look at any other realm of HR which used to be very traditional, my favorite example is performance management. Right? Again, this is something which is indispensable to any organization, and I think every HR manager worth his salt, would implement a performance management system, in the company. And if the company doesn't have a process, when the person joins, that's the first thing that they would bounce upon, that hey, this needs to be corrected. The way we look at it now, you don't need to actually implement performance management in an organization in the traditional sense, because there are several other ways to actually do a much better job. That includes stuff like continuous performance reviews and the ability to actually integrate with your line of business system. So, for example, if you're a sales organization, you can actually do a lot of performance management and performance measurement within the sales function itself, rather than doing it as part of an HR process. So a lot of these paradigms have changed, and we as HR technology providers, we recognize that. Most of the time, we try to be ahead of the curve. If not, yes, we definitely understand the trends and ensure that we offer more and more value to the customer. So that's been our approach, in the context of all of these things changing. And of course, I think in a small way, we've also been leading the change. So, for example, when we talk about employee performance management, we actually tried to introduce a new paradigm over a couple of years back, and I would say we were kind of moderately successful in getting that adopted by several customers. So I think as HR technology providers, it's also upon us to lead the change, and introduce customers to new concepts, new paradigms, and push the envelope in terms of making them acceptable. What we've also seen is that because of the consumerization of this technology, uh, a lot of what would you expect as a large enterprise class system is now becoming accessible to a lot of the underserved segments. So, for example, if you take remote workers, okay, or take the example of teams which are fragmented. These were typically very underserved segments of the working population within a company, and increasingly a lot of the HR technology is able to kind of build a ring fence around all of this and make it more and more inclusive. So I think that's one very important trend, which is again being helped by the technology, which is on mobility and social.
Right.
The other thing that we see distinctly as a trend, and this of course it's taken its own time, but now because of to a large degree because of success which has been seen in other areas, the large enterprises are now looking very favorably towards the cloud as a technology for a mainstream business process like HR. So one is within the HR function itself, there is fragmentation happening because no longer look at a monolithic piece of software or technology to do something that you wanted to do earlier. So you can actually pick and choose different components. So for example, you might choose an LMS from Mindtickle, and you might LMS, or a learning management platform from Mindtickle, and you might choose something else for a performance management, and you may still want to make these two work together. And because of the fact that every vendor wants to be interoperable, it's now that much more easier to ensure that whatever you're buying will work with each other. So the risk for an enterprise to buy a piece of technology and then to make sure it works is far reduced as opposed to buying monolithic software and hoping that it will work. So that's one important trend that's happening where large enterprises are now looking at buying pieces of software at a reduced risk and ensuring that it works well together in their entire ecosystem. So by and large, these are the trends that we see. One very important thing, just to conclude, is that with the consumerization of software, every piece of software must work like Facebook. It's become the norm, which every customer expects. Because I think, like Jason was saying, it's more and more about the employees and less about just the HR team using software. And so when you reach out and kind of touch every part of the workforce, your software must be very iPad-y. It must look and feel like it's a great piece of software. Hey, I can use it on my iPad. I can be on a mobile. And so every aspect of looking at the user experience, I think, becomes very, very important for anything going forward.
Wonderful. Well, in fact, thank you so much for such a detailed overview of HR tech trends that you have seen. And I'm not sure where that echo is coming. If you guys can be on mute, that would be great. I guess it's from Sagar. So Jason has given you an overview of data, the importance of data in cloud, and Mohit has said a little bit about, going to say a little bit more about gamification, which we are really intrigued into, and he said a little bit about SMAC, social, mobile, analytical, and cloud. That's the way that any HR tech going to be head on. And Sagar has mentioned a little bit more about virtualization and visualization, which we are going to get in detail. And now Sandeep has mentioned a little bit more about the user interface, which I'm sure you all are interested and eagerly waiting to hear. So at this time, what I really wanted to make you all note is, let me say, from our audience base, those of who are starting on that initial pathway to using their HR technology. Some of them, if it is a small organization, they might be using the basic needs of their HR tech. But if it is a larger organization, they are using, I've seen they are using this end-to-end HR suite, and most of them are finding it really easy to have a one solution provider. So what have you seen from your experience working with a lot of clients? I know you can be on that vendor's shoes and you can be on that user's shoes. So what have you seen on from a client basis? When they are choosing that HR technology for the first time, what are some aspects that they should be knowing in that initial moment? Or how should they be evaluating, okay, this is the technology that I wanted to have or that I wanted to buy? So what are some questions that they should be asking in that initial point? Jason, I would like you to be taking that turn.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll go once again. I'll go through three things. First of all, one of the things that we struggle with in HR technology is we're really good at implementing modules, and we're really bad at deploying processes.
Yeah.
And employees don't work in modules. If you think about that, we work in a process. We're trying to complete a process. We're not trying to we're not trying to just go in a module. So, when someone says, hey, let's do performance management, or let's do learning management, or let's do recruiting, that's a module-based approach to implementation that doesn't work. It works for HR, but it doesn't work for the workforce. So the first thing, think process, not module. The second big thing to think about is that in today's world, you have to realize that not every organization is going to use a peanut butter spread across all these things. They have to realize which of these human resource processes really make a difference to them. So, I think one of my fellow panelists said earlier, performance management is great, or not great, but everyone needs a performance management tool. I would argue that that's not the case. They might need a way to do a performance appraisal, but for certain types of jobs, I might need different types of performance management. So don't apply a one-size-fits-all
Mm-hmm.
HR technology approach to every job, because not every job is the same. Not every skill set's the same. And then the third thing I'd say is you really have to look at how and decide as an HR function how you're going to deliver services. So self-service isn't for everyone. I mean, I always tell people self-service is the stupidest name ever developed by HR tech vendors. We should use the term direct access. We're giving employees and managers direct access to interact, collaborate, and to one of my panelists' comments, fall in love with the technology or fall in love with the user experience. But self-service, hey, someone used to do it for you, now you have to do it yourself. That's a terrible message to get across. So to me, those three things are really, really important, as we think about where do we start our journey.
Right.
Yeah, and
How
maybe
about
I'll pick up from where Jason left. And I think as we think about HR technology, I think people have now started to look at the wider landscape. And like Jason was saying, it's not just about buying modules, right? I think the lens which a lot of HR leaders are applying today, and we hear that from our customers, is about, for the lack of a better word, the strategic impact they're going to bring about. Now, this is an overused, abused term, right? So let me explain what that means, right? So if you were to implement a performance management system and be done with it, that's a functional checkbox, HR implemented process, right? So I'll take it beyond the process, like how Jason explained. Process is really important. It's about how does that process now create any form of competitive advantage or improvement, business improvement for the organization. So I think more and more we are finding that the kind of questions we get during prospecting and our sales cycles are more around, okay, so which are the other customers that you have served? And we have examples. And then the next question is, what business impact has it created? Now that's new, right? Because earlier it used to be around features. It used to be about, can it do this? Can it do that? It's now turning around because the CEOs are asking the HR leaders about business impact. They're asking them about, okay, how does this make my employee more engaged or more productive or more longevity is being increased? So I think focus is shifting towards some business metrics, which is a great thing. And I'll just reflect back on the UI discussion that we had earlier, right? So if you think about design principles, right? So UI is just a manifestation of design principles, right? It's just the facade or front end of design principles. Design principles start with taking a user-centric approach. They start with saying, put the administrator, the end user, the employee, the manager at the center of that design. So I think the two go hand in hand. If you can apply design principles, marry the outcomes with real business impact, which might be reducing churn of employees, it might be improving employee engagement, it might be about, one of the panelists took the example of Salesforce effectiveness. If you can drive the connection of the features, process, and technology that you're putting in place on how it will eventually drive business results and be able to understand in a common sense way, and not saying that the statistical multiplexing of this analytics is going to create this. Make it simple, intuitive. So I think that's where I would say a lot of the ongoing discussions we've been having is about intuitively be able to explain how design principles are going to ensure high user engagement and how this is going to drive business results.
Well, this is really great, Mohit. What you said right now is I really embrace that because everything has to be aligned with the business goal, and it's technology, it's ever changing, and innovations are going to happen down the line. So it's always have to have an opportunity to redesign
Right.
or probably to have an improved version of user interface. For sometimes the technology might don't have an option or might have not developed mobile or video as a platform,
Sure. Sure.
as an integrated platform, but giving that access to an ongoing innovation and add on whatever the technology innovations that is going to happen, if it is mobile or if it is video or if it is any data analytics that is going to add on their HR tech, that would really be great. And in fact, I have a different question for Sagar. And Sagar, welcome back to the show. We're really happy to see you over here. So, what are some HR technology standards that you have seen that your clients are asking or probably expecting from you as a seller from to your point, what are some expectations that any buyer of HR technology would have?
So, as Jason talked about it, we shouldn't call it self-service, but we should call it direct access. So, when I talk to the business leaders, they want direct access to data. So, they want to have a 360 view of their employees. So today, what happens is that they need to do some research on, so they want to look at some information which would help them predict attrition. So, for example, so today they have to come to their HR business partner and ask the HR business partner for the data, who in turn goes back to the backend team and procures that information and then puts it in a simple form and sends it across to the business leader. So, so all these steps, they create a lag in the system. What the business leader would want to do is access the information real time, himself or herself, and generate his or her own reports, and come to a conclusion or do an analysis that he or she wanted to do. So today, mostly in terms of data, we see our business leaders asking us direct access to data and ability to generate ad hoc reports, do correlation on the data, and come to their own conclusion. So this is one trend that we are seeing, and I think this is growing more and more. People want to become independent in terms of how they arrive at their own conclusions.
Well, in fact, why these users are relying more or asking for or focusing more on the data is like everybody wants that analytical ability in order to find what's happening or what's going to happen as a future in there. And make some informed decision. So do you see, like we normally talk SaaS, right? Software as a service. So do you see an era that is going to happen? I mean, it's of course happening. Data as a service.
Oh, absolutely. You actually stole what I wanted to say. So yes, there would be a time when we would have we would have vendors who would provide data as a service. Absolutely. And today it's it is more about scaling to your needs. One of the biggest hindrances to adoption of technology in HR was that the business leaders and most of the CFO of a company would come and ask for return on investment. And the way technology was being offered earlier, there were huge sunk cost in it. And so HR would actually be the poor cousin who would not get that money from the CFO to buy the technology. But with the advent of SaaS or software as a service, we were able to overcome that obstacle, and we could expand on a need basis. And we didn't really have to invest a lot of money upfront. And with a lot of vendors coming around analytics, I'm sure we would have a day when you would see data as a service coming our way as well.
Right. And another trend that we have seen is like, no matter whatever technology you have, if you don't know how to use it and if you don't know how to make the best or most out of your technology, you are wasting your time and money. So what have you seen? My question is to Sandeep. What have you seen are some of the challenges that your buyers might have when it comes to implementation and knowing what is that technology is all about?
So, Nisha, let me answer that question slightly differently. Going back to the question about data, I think one of the panelists was mentioning about the fact that users just don't have the data available, and they would so much like to have their hands on it. From our experience, when we've been, especially with new customers, whenever we are onboarding a new customer, so we're very fond of saying that, hey, we can get you up and running within a week. It almost never happens. And the reason is very simple: they don't have data. And if it's a company which is like multi-location, or they've got like 5 companies within the group, it's even worse, because there's 5 HR business partners working in 5 different companies, and they won't talk to each other, they won't share data. And if the group CEO or the group chairman wants information about as simple as what's the current headcount and what's the staff cost, and what has been our attrition trend over the last 1 year, split it over business function and business group, it's just not available. And this is the simplest of things that you can actually ask from an HR department, but that's a big challenge. So when we look at the fact that as organizations are growing, the need for not just data but real-time access to information and analytics is something which is very, very important. We kind of try and do small experiments from time to time, and we did small experiments with regards to what is the information that people really want on a real-time basis. So, there are two things that, I'm very kind of fond of. One is there's a Google Analytics mail which I get every morning saying that, hey, this is a trend on your website. And I simply love it because I don't need to go to Google and find that out. It takes maybe 15-20 seconds for me to just quickly glance through that because that's one thing that I really want to track personally myself. That's useful. The second one is, a website which tracks some of the investments. So, for example, it says, hey, this particular company, the share price has gone below 300 rupees, and it's because I've set up that alert and I should be concerned about it. And so that kind of got us thinking, why can't we bring the same kind of technology to mainstream HR functions? So if I, as a business head, I'm really concerned about, let's say, staff absence, okay, or people not filling in certain reports on time, right? Can I set up, can I set certain threshold levels and say, if this happens, just let me know, maybe send me a text, SMS, or maybe, send me some information over email. So we've tried and, done some stuff like this, which is not really analytics, but, actionable information. And, we've seen that, these kind of things are really being appreciated, by the customers. Of course, the expectations also change once you start delivering things like this. They would always want more and more, to be available to them. So the important point here is that, we must understand what are the customer's expectations, and technology must move toward making those expectations, close to reality. And across all functions, what you see in HR, whether it's talent management, talent acquisition, your typical transactional stuff like employee costs and leave and absence and so on. So across all of these, I think there's a lot of potential to make analytics available and useful in a meaningful way, and I think that's being enabled a lot by technologies around cloud and SaaS. And I think what we are seeing right now is just the beginning. I think this is just going to explode and transform, in a big way.
Yeah, and Nisha, if I may add to this, I think this is a great forum to also have a discussion about what has to happen from the HR professionals' end to support this trend of consumerization. Right? So we're talking about technologies becoming more user-centric. We're talking about how it's becoming tied to business results, how it's becoming direct access, right, to use Jason's term. But I will share a challenge which we have witnessed at Mindtickle many times. So despite providing very intuitive direct access, we find that many HR community members have become, so talk about customer expectations, have started to expect concierge experience, right? Now the challenge with that is, we do provide concierge experience, it's cost of doing business in some cases. The challenge with that is that it will slow down innovation. So, my open discussion or appeal to the larger HR community is, why don't we look at some of the other industries or other functions such as marketing, which have lapped up direct access in a very, very short time frame, right? And we find that when it comes to adoption to direct access, and maybe I'm stating a debate here, I find that the adoption of direct access is a little bit slower than we would like, right? There is still a very strong desire to be hands-off and let the vendor come in and set up everything for them, right? I would say if this could be turned around to a model wherein both the provider and the user are very motivated to take advantage of trials, to say, now I have my organization context for which a cookie cutter approach may not work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trial a few systems. Okay, I'm going to take the effort of rolling up my sleeves, work very closely with the provider, and invest my time and effort to taking advantage of the direct access, right? So think of it as an appeal, think of it as a debate. I think there needs to be more that needs to happen from both sides to enable the proliferation of very agile, fast, iterative cycles of innovation in HR. And I think there's a great opportunity, and I think HR technology can grow much faster and become a lot more effective if both sides of this coin collaborate to make a difference here.
Wonderful.
I think,
Jason.
So, Nisha, can I jump in real quick?
No?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, Jason,
Yeah,
go ahead.
so-
please.
Okay, great. So really, I mean, to me, everything that Mohit just said is really, really important. And one of the things I just want to jump in is because I spent a lot of time studying this, and to me, you know, I have been tweeting some of these thoughts as we've been going along. But you know, the first thing is HR is terrible at marketing. I mean, HR is not good at marketing. I mean, and everyone just needs to realize that. I mean, you know, we're not very good at making claims for anything that we do. You know, so I mean, first of all, we have to market what we're doing, and realize that the people that are using MindTickle and the people that are using collaboration technology and the people that are using direct access are not HR people. So I mean, HR people are doing it because it's their job. They're getting paid to do it, and if they don't do it, they get fired. You know, employees can choose whether or not they use this stuff. So we have to market it in a way that's exciting. I mean, why do we go see a movie? Why do we watch things on television? Why do we join India HR Live? You know, we do it because there's people marketing in our face all the time. Hey, you better join India HR Live or you're going to fall behind the times. So marketing is a key thing. So first of all, we're not good at marketing, and that has to be a component to it. The second thing is we're not good at talking about value. So, you know, if I'm going to say, hey, go use this cool new technology, collaboration, you know, so what? Like, what can I expect to receive from it? I have to be able to say, you know, you're going to be a better employee, or you have a better chance of promotion, or you have a better chance of X. So I have to be able to talk about the value, not to me as an HR professional, but the value to the user of doing it. And the last thing I'll just say about that is that if the business executives aren't bought into it, you're not going to get the employees bought into it. You know, it's sort of like, you know, hey, if I'm afraid to tweet, so and unless I see some other people tweeting, I'm not going to tweet. I'm afraid to post on Facebook. If I'm afraid, you know, other people aren't going to do it. So I need business executives bought into it first, and if they're bought into it, then the employees all of a sudden say, hey, this is safe. Hey, if John or if Mary are doing this, then it's okay if I do it. So, I mean, those three things, marketing, value, and the business buy-in, not just HR pushing out the technology, that's what, back to Mohit's point, that's what's going to drive adoption. But if we just put it out there and hope they come, you know, we're going to have a lonely life.
Well said.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, indeed, that's a great point, as Jason has pointed out. Sagar, you have something to say.
Yes, so you know, I think in addition to what Mohit and Jason just said, see, there's a big element to technology adoption, and that's people who will be impacted by the technology. And people. So you know, when we are implementing a new technology, it's all about change management. And you know, one of the principles of change management is that you know, the acceptance of a solution cannot be stacked on top of the solution. So what we bring in through technology is a solution, but if we work on the acceptance along with the implementation of a solution, then the acceptance is a lot higher. So, or the effectiveness of the implementation is a lot higher. So, to the point that Mohit and Jason were making, it is very important for HR to create that buy-in when they are, evaluating the technology that they have to implement. And the best way to do it is make your users a part of decision making. When they are invested in the decision making, they have a far higher acceptance of the solution. And once they have the acceptance of the solution, the implementation is successful.
Wonderful. Well, this is going to be a fantastic conversation, and I know 60 minutes is not enough for us with this great panelists to cover this such an interesting topic. And let's take one of the questions from our Twitter stream, and we have Kunjal, and his question is: any examples where HR technology overpowers human element of HR? Do you see that as a risk? And who would you like to take this question?
You know, can I just go real quick? Mine's gonna be a very quick answer.
Sure.
So you never replace the human. You augment the human. And the concept is how do you make the human interaction more rich? So, you know, it's not going to replace the human. I think that's, for those of us that use this as an excuse, I think it's garbage. And if that's what we're trying to do is replace the human, then once again, I think that it's garbage. So I think we have to make the human interaction more rich by providing better data and better interactions for the workforce.
Right. That is again going back to engagement, the point Mohit has said in the very beginning, and then now everybody has quoted on that because employees are going to use it ultimately, and if they don't like it, and if HR don't take that courage enough to introduce, and even managers, HR and leadership don't have the courage to introduce this technology to employees, and they are not comfortable in using it, you are going to fail. So what are your thoughts on increasing the engagement factor when it comes to HR technology? I know going back to my work world when I was with my employer previously, and when we launched this performance management system as a platform for the first time, we had a little bit of challenges, like managers even don't know how to use it for the first time, and it wasn't even mobile. I mean back in 5 years ago, mobile wasn't a platform at all. And we know this, all the sales employees are out in the field early in the morning, and they won't be able to come back to their office until evening in order to probably endure whatever on the system, if it is performance management cycle or if they're time cycle or anything. So now it is very convenient that we have this mobile platform, and they can update from anywhere in the world, maybe on the go. I mean, not maybe, sure, on the go, and utilize it. But when it comes to involving that leaders, or what do you expect from that leadership team in order to increase the engagement? And this question is to everyone. Mohit, would you like to take the turn?
Sure. So I think let's look at engagement from two perspectives, right? So one, I think we've already talked about end user engagement, right? So I'm not going to belabor that point. I think we all sort of understand that and have a common voice there amongst the panelists and I think the audience as well, right?
Yeah.
But if we take the second aspect of engagement, right, it's going to be about how this introduction of technology is going to enhance the overall value creation for the organization. Right? Now that value creation will come from 2 or 3 sources. Right? One, it will come from any kinds of efficiencies it may produce, but efficiencies that it may produce, I think, has to become apparent to the employees and the leaders. Right? It can't be something which the provider can't quantify or talk about. It's very hard to justify that value if it's very hard to understand. Right? So I think one, that value has to be quantified and understood by all the participants. The second aspect, I'll go back to Jason's points about marketing that value. So one way to drive engagement is to make that value not just quantified, but also well known. So I would say while user experience is a big driver of engagement, and I can talk at length about how gamification is one of the tools that you can employ. You can create human conversations in a social environment to create user engagement. And of course, you can create a very intuitive, simple, engaging user experience. So those are all the things that we've already talked about. But I would emphasize the articulation of value, why this process change, technology change makes sense, what value does it promise, and then being able to communicate and get buy-in on that value from all the participants and stakeholders.
Right. And going back to one of your points, and we have a question. Well, the problem with technology providers is that many haven't actually worked in HR, because this is always debatable. So do you think that this HR technology sellers should be having an HR experience? Sagar, would you like to take that question?
Yes. So I completely agree that the technology providers should have the HR experience, and it's a product, and every product company has product managers. So the folks who are in the business of providing HR technology, my sincere advice to them would be that their product managers should be folks who have worked in HR, who have practiced HR, because they would actually know what is the expectation of the customers of HR from the technology, and they can build into the roadmap of the product out there.
So, Jason, what have you seen? Do you think that HR technology sellers should have the HR experience?
Yeah, so I mean, in a perfect world, yes, but that's not the world we live in. So I mean, I think that that's a great thing to say, but in reality, that's very, very hard. I think that to me, we need technologists to be the best technologists in the world. But what we need to do is we need to surround those technologists and make sure that they have very sound advisory groups, that they have customer involvement, that everything that they're doing, they're involving customers and end users. So, I would hate it if every single HR person in the world all of a sudden started writing HR software or workforce software, because I think we'd have a mess on our hands. I need to combine the best technologists in the world with the advice of HR people to drive this forward. So I think that it's a balance. I think what happens, and I've seen some of this tweets, is too many people that walk in to do a sales demo of software don't understand HR business.
That's
and
true.
that's a travesty and a tragedy. I think that they do the sales demo, they show the pitch, everything looks really cool. All of a sudden people start drooling and they love it, and the next thing you know, no one uses it. So I mean, I think that the vendors have to do a better job of educating the people that are doing the demos on how do we actually not just show the technology, but how do we show the technology in a way that demonstrates the value and what it's going to take to make it work in an organization. So, yeah, long answer, but I think that you need both the technology skills with the augmentation of what it takes to be successful in HR.
Right. How about you, Sandeep? Would you like to share some of your thoughts?
Yes, Nisha. So, our experience, of course, has been, in selling HR software, not having an HR background at all. I think, that happens, and, I think it's a good thing because, when we come in as a technology expert and, we come in with really big ears, so, we kind of listen very carefully to what customers say. I think that's the biggest asset, at least in our company, as important. So we get asked this question several times that, who's the HR expert in your company? And, if it's me, I said, you're looking at the worst HR expert out there, because we don't have HR expertise internally. But yes, when you're doing a sales pitch or, when you're kind of working with an HR team to, kind of implement or roll out your software, it helps to have people on board who understand HR terminology. But we used to get asked this question a lot of times that, hey, why do your people talk so much tech? Why can't they understand the language that we understand? And so I think it's important for them to learn that language. As long as they demonstrate an ability to learn that language and to be able to converse on those terms, I think it's absolutely fine. We do a lot of listening, a lot of learning from our own customers. So far so good.
Right. So this question is to all of our panelists from an HR vendor point of view. We know that, if we are selling something, or let me say, if you are a chef and if you are serving your food, first of all, you have to taste it and understand if it is really, really tasty. So how about you? When you are selling your HR product or HR technology, what do you recommend to those HR vendors in order to help them in delivering what the buyers really need? Mohit.
I'm sorry, Nisha. I'm not sure I entirely understand the question, but so maybe you can elaborate because I
can elaborate. Right now, Jason has always pointed out a little bit about the demo, giving out, just selling what they have in their hand instead of really letting the customers know what they can get out of it, So what do you expect, or what do you advise to those HR vendors in order to approach the buyers? This specific question is for the HR vendors out there, not to disturb the buyers, but making sure they are delivering the right value to what their buyers are seeking for.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. So first of all, I think the buying process is broken, right? So I am part of the selling process. I do sell for Mintical, and it's my personal opinion that the way software is sold and bought today, it is broken. There's so much information asymmetry. If there was a little more trust, and I don't know how to bring about that trust. So I'll give examples of mistrust, right? So you get into sales calls, and there isn't as much open exchange about, okay, what other type of alternatives are we looking at as a buyer, right? If the vendor is aware of those alternatives, then the vendor can do his or her best job of educating the customer about those pros and cons, right? So I think I would take it even level higher. I'd say there is information asymmetry in the buying process, which hinders value creation for both parties involved. And I don't have a bright idea on how to go about fixing it. I'm still working on it. I will share if I have some big breakthroughs here. But I think it starts with, at least from the provider, vendor side, going into the discussions with a very open mindset. Not going in, doing whatever possible to make the sale, but going in and listening, understanding the problem, and having a conversation like a colleague would have with a colleague, not with a seller talking to a buyer, right? Have a conversation at the human level, understand the problem, understand the context before you jump into the solutions. I think active listening is maybe the best tool any provider in any sector, not just HR, can adopt in a sales cycle. And I don't think the problem we referred to about the salespeople not speaking the HR speak or not being able to relate to the HR context being the biggest problem. I think it's about jumping into the solution discussion very soon before having a discussion on the problem. So again, high level, maybe you're looking for something more actionable, but I'll stop here because I think this is where the core of the problem lies.
Right. Jason, would you like to add your points?
So I completely agree with Mohit. I mean, I think that the way that this can be successful is to start with don't demonstrate your software, demonstrate a business solution. Don't demonstrate your software, demonstrate a business solution.
Wonderful.
And in order to demonstrate a business solution, you actually have to understand the business problem. So, one of the things that I hate, and I hate more than most things in life, is the RFP process in this industry. We're not buying napkins. This isn't a commodity. We're not buying a napkin. Isn't a napkin. Isn't a napkin. We're buying specialized software to solve a business solution. And the way that procurement organizations treat vendors is as they're in peddling napkins. And as long as that's the case, as long as HR software is being bought and consumed, or software in general, not just HR software, software in general is being thought of as a commodity, we're always going to have these dumb bake-offs that vendors are spending more time trying to outdo the other in the bake-off to win the RFP than they are in actually solving a business solution. And at the end, that does an amazing disjustice to the buyer.
Great. Wonderful insights right there, Jason. And thank you so much to everyone. I know we are running out of time, and we all know that it's been a fantastic conversation happening right now, and we need to stop because it's only 60 minutes and we are already running out of time. But yet again, one last single question to all of our panelists, and we would really appreciate if we can answer in probably 1 or 2 sentences without taking that much time. So what have you seen are some of the skills that are lacking probably in the HR industry, I mean in the HR professionals very particularly. I know we talked a lot about the marketing skills and knowing the business, but what have you seen are some of the skills that are really, really lacking? Jason.
Sorry about that. I was writing down my answers so that I could be succinct, and then I took more time writing them down than answering your question. So 3 things: process, 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 process. So there's not enough people that understand how to build efficient processes, and really what an efficient process is, and drive standardization of process. Everything's an exception, and that kills our space. The second thing is data. Not enough people understand how data works, and that I should enter name exactly 0 times. Name should be entered by the applicant and never entered again. It should flow throughout my entire systems, and most organizations still spend a ton of time with data issues. And then the last skill that people need in this space is imagination. Because we've been doing the exact same thing for 5 generations of HR technology, and without imagination, we're going to keep doing the exact same thing.
Wonderful. Sandeep.
Nisha, so I think what we've seen is HR business partners are generally very, very enthusiastic, when when they're told to do something. But we see very rarely, HR business people, HR business partners coming up and wanting to do something on their own. And I think that stems from the fact that they're used to being told to do stuff rather than taking an initiative, to push the envelope and maybe take a new business proposition to management, getting a buy-in from management and saying that, hey, I'll see this thing through. So that I think is something that we would really like to see HR play a more long-term role and a more durable role in making change happen in the organization.
Right. How about you, Sagar?
So, I think one of the skills that we lack as HR professionals is consulting skills. I've typically seen that, either when we go and meet the business, we already have a solution in mind and we jump on the solution, or on the diametrically opposite end, we are out there to take orders and then execute on those orders. I think we need the ability to engage the business in a meaningful dialogue, consult with them, and then come to a joint solution.
Cool. How about you, Mohit?
Yeah, I'll build on our own experience. So at Mindtickle, we looked at in other spaces, the organizations who've been very successful, what have they done to be successful? And we were very inspired by this company called HubSpot. It's one of the leaders in marketing technology. And one of the things they've done really well is iterate very fast with their products and solutions. So if I had one advice for the overall HR fraternity is not to be afraid of failures. I think we often tweet about, I deployed this technology and it failed. Let's start celebrating failures, because failures are going to make us learn, and it's going to make the upward bosses and decision makers more accepting of failure. If we don't accept our failures as an experiment, label it as an experiment, saying, we tried this didn't work, we learned these 3 new things, so we're going to try this instead. Unless we do that, then people are going to have HR budgets under the scanner. They're going to say, you got this wrong. And next time, people are not going to be imaginative. They're not going to try. So that'd be my biggest advice.
Wonderful. So guys, there you have it. Embrace failure, try out the HR technology, and utilize all the HR technology that you have with a great user experience. So don't forget the user experience. Your employees have to really, really love it, and then only you can succeed in it. So thank you so much to all of you for being there on the Twitter stream and on every social media platform that we have, and supporting the show. We really, really appreciate. Without you, we couldn't have reached this far. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to all of our panelists, Jason, Mohit, Sandeep, and Sagar. We would like to have you here sometime in the future as well. Look forward to doing a show sometime soon, and wish you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day or rest of the night.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Right. Bye-bye.